get into some of the deals. Let's talk about your first deal and why you didn't want to be a landlord. Well, let's just talk about that. How did it happen? Where'd you find it? I guess where were you at as far as your mindset during that time, right? And then how did it eventually put you in a space where you decided I don't want to be a landlord anymore?
Sure. So it's kind of like where a place where I chose to live, and then it was time to move, and so that was my first opportunity to be a true landlord, and first tenant. So I did everything on my own, self-managed. I tried to find a property manager, but that was fun. So I'm like, no, I don't have that kind of time. I'll just do it myself. I'll find everybody I need. And I had a very good real estate agent. And so we just kind of vetted some folks. And then my first tenant was fine until she needed to move, 6 months, 7 months into the lease. And, you had that kind of, okay, well, that's great. Just pay out the remainder of what your lease is, and then you can certainly move, no big deal. So that was a little challenge. And so eventually, she had a father who was in real estate, which was interesting. We had eventually negotiated, and she moved out. She paid the remainder of her lease to break the lease. And so that wasn't too bad. Second tenant, moved in and stayed for a minute, but wasn't the best in terms of cleanliness. So, you kind of had a brand new house, sort of. It was probably like 2-3 years old and new, in my opinion. And so I learned a lot from that. And it kind of led me to my actual first real investment. And that was, I hadn't went to the property in like 2 years. Like I knew that what was happening. I had kind of people checking on it. It wasn't really cost country. I just, in the space of time, I didn't. And so when I finally, did put the person out, because it was, non-payment essentially at some point. And I went to my house and I was like, okay, I blame me for everything that's going on. So we went to work and really had to do some sweat equity to right. And I thought after that, so I did do it again, who actually was ended up to be a very good tenant. And they stayed for a minute. And eventually I came back and then cleaned up again, but wasn't too bad at that point. Learned that you can get a maid service, right? You can pay somebody to go in there and do that. And we did, and added some few things, and I did pretty good as far as when it's time to sell. I held on that for a minute, and so yeah, it was my primary residence, and then turned that into a rental for a little bit. But my first true investment property was 2017. So did you want me to go into that one?
No, that's fine. I think what you described, we'll definitely go into that for sure. But I think what you described there is what most military families go through when they PCS, right? They have a house, and usually a lot of times it typically is fairly new, right? It's a newer build, usually a newer community, especially at the posts that I've been at, the bases that I've been at. It's usually, families tend to go to the newer build homes, right? And then they go to PCS. And then they have to decide, do I want to self-manage out of state or from a distance, or do I want to hire a property manager? And there's pros and cons to both. And it sounds like you've outlined a few of each, but if you could talk to someone that is going through that situation, trying to decide, hey, what do I want to do with this? What advice would you give them?
I would say you have to know what you can tolerate.